mock drafts, picks 1 through 8 videos I've put up. Here's the final 9 through 12 mock draft breakdown of what you could do for your fantasy team and see what players you get. So 9th overall pick, I started off Amon-Ra St. Brown. He fell to me at the 9th pick, so I think it's great value. Jonathan Taylor went before him. Then second round, I came back, got Puka Nacua. I know Nacua is banged up with the knee injury, but he should be fine for the regular season in week 1. And Puka, I believe he's a better receiver than A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson, arguably. Get him in the second round, I believe, after those guys is good value for me. Third round, I reached a little bit towards the end of the third for Malik Nabers. But Nabers, a lot of hype out of training camp. He could be a big-time wide receiver for this New York Giant team. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if he's a top 12, 15 wide receiver this season. Like I said, I reached for him a little bit. On about that mid-4th, 5th round range at latest is Nabers. Then the 4th round, Lamar Jackson, he was over there. And like I said, if those elite quarterbacks, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, are there in the 4th round, I believe you got to go out there and get them. Then 5th round, Mark Andrews, I went. So I obviously punted the running back position early on in this draft. And then 4 rounds in a row, Ramondre Stevenson. In the 6th round, I went out there and got Stevenson. I think he could be decent as a number 2 back, but obviously he's my number 1. Then 7th round, Jalen Warren. He's a good PPR running back. 8th round, Tony Pollard. Him and Spears, most likely a 50-50 split. And Pollard, we'll see if Pollard can have a bounce-back season after last year was a down year. Austin Eckler, we're in the 9th round. He was a first rounder last season and now going to back up and play passing downs behind Brian Robinson, which I like both Washington running backs in this part of the draft, anywhere from that 7th to 9th round range. Then 10th round, Xavier Worthy, who I've been big on throughout all these mock drafts, possibly could be the number 1 wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. So to get him in the 10th round is my number 4 wide out. I like it. 11th round, Rico Dottle, possibly could be the starter for the Dallas Cowboys in good value. 12th round, Keon Coleman, pretty much same like I mentioned. Coleman could be as Xavier Worthy, possibly the number 1 target, him and Curtis Samuel most likely in the receiving corps for the Buffalo Bills. 13th round, Mike Williams coming off the ACL injury. We'll see what he can do with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, but to take a flyer on Williams and to become my 6th running back, I like it. And then I'd finish off with kicker and defense, McPherson, and the New England defense. So obviously, kicker and defense I leave to the last couple rounds. So the final roster, Lamar Jackson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Ramondre Stevenson, Warren, Mark Andrews, Malik Nabers, Evan McPherson, New England defense. Then to the bench, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Xavier Worthy, Rico Dotto, Keon Coleman, and Mike Williams. So if you're going to punt the running back position, even though I didn't mean to in this draft, it was just the way the draft was going, and I wasn't going to reach for some certain running backs. Even though I did reach for Malik Nabers, I still believe I'm strong at the wide receiver position. Obviously, top 5 quarterback in Lamar Jackson. And running backs, I hammered the running back position after I knew I needed to make up some ground and at least get some depth if Stevenson or Warren can't do much this season, to get Eckler and Pollard. So I think in the 9th pick overall, if you want to punt running backs, different options you could go with. But right here, St. Brown falling and going receiver heavy is the way I went. With the 10th pick overall, I started off with Jahmyr Gibbs. I know he's banged up with the hamstring injury, but he should be ready for week 1 if it stays status quo like it is. Then 2nd round, once again, Puka Nacua, which I think is great value. Like I mentioned, I have him over receivers like A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson. That's how good I think Puka Nacua could be once again in the Sean McVay system, even though he's not 100% right now with the knee injury. But by the time the season starts, and when he got the injury, he had a month off. Then Michael Pittman in the 3rd round. I think Pittman's a solid wide receiver, and I've been getting him a lot. It's Michael Pittman in the back end of these drafts in that 3rd, 4th round range. Then 4th round, once again, another elite quarterback is in that range, and you just got to take a shot and get him. Jalen Hurts. Like I said, Hurts has the upside to be a number 1 quarterback. It's close between Allen, Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Mahomes. So if any of those players are there in the 4th round, you get them. 5th round, Zay Flowers last season, middle of the pack type of season for Zay Flowers. But receivers definitely were flying off the board in this mock draft. So to lock up Flowers in the 5th might be a little bit early, but still is my flex option or a 3rd receiver. If you're in 3 receiver leagues, I like Flowers there. Then James Conner in the 6th round, which I like Conner in the 6th round there. He's still going to be a workhorse back. I know they drafted Trey Benson, But Connor could do it all: pass protect, run in between the tackles, obviously, catch the football out of the backfield. Just injury concerns have been a problem for him throughout his career. Then once again, Tony Pollard, I get in this draft. And I noticed Pollard's in that 6th, 7th round range. And to get him as a backup, I'm perfectly fine with Tony Pollard as my backup running back, where we'll see him or Spears, which guy will emerge out of that backfield and possibly take over as the season goes on. Then 8th round, Chris Godwin, solid number 4 wide receiver on my roster this season. I think he'll be playing in the flex more for this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team, and I'll get more opportunities. Then once again, I get Austin Eckler in the 10th round this time. Why not take a shot on Austin Eckler? I don't think in a season his number is going to just tail off that much, where he went from a first rounder and now to 8 to the 10th round. I'm getting Eckler in as a backup piece. I think he's pretty solid in this 11th round. Brian Thomas Jr., he should have a decent role in his rookie season. And this is what you look for in the late rounds: upside in young players who could break out and pay big dividends for fantasy owners. Then another running back, Zach Charbonnet, in the 12th round. Charbonnet, he's got an opportunity to split with Kenneth Walker or possibly even overtake Walker as the season goes on, even though I'm pretty big on Walker coming into the year at the right price range in that 4th or 5th round. Finish off the bench, I went to Tavian Wicks, see what the receivers over there in Green Bay look like, even though Wicks so far in the preseasons look good with a long touchdown. And then kicker and defense in the last 2 rounds, Myers, and the Green Bay defense final roster: Jalen Hurts, Puka Nacua, Michael Pittman, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Conner, Dallas Goedert. Who I liked in that 9th round was Goddard. Hurts could do a double up for my fantasy team, get double the points. And also, I wasn't really paying attention of getting a tight end early in the draft. I wasn't going to force it and overpick a guy like George Kittle or Kyle Pitts. I waited a couple more rounds out, and I still got Dallas Goedert, who I think has decent upside. I know he's the 4th or 5th option in the offense for the Philadelphia Eagles, but still to get him in tight end solid. Zay Flowers, entering his 2nd season at the flex, I think is pretty good. Then, like I said, Myers in Green Bay D. Tony Pollard, 6th, 7th round as a backup running back. I'm fine taking him there. Chris Godwin, my number 4 wide out. Good spot to get him in the 8th round. Austin Eckler, if he's got anything left in the tank. Brian Thomas, young prospect. Why wouldn't you take him in the late rounds and possibly a breakout where it's wide open over there? Who could be the number 1, 2, and 3 receivers in Jacksonville? Then Zach Charbonnet, he's got a shot possibly to split or even overtake the running back position in Seattle, and he's one of the better handcuffs. And Tavian Wicks as the 3rd last spot on my bench. So I think it's a solid team overall, and we'll see if some of the young guys can break out. From the number 11 spot, once again, I go Puka Nacua. I'm just big on Puka Nacua this season. He's going to be there in the back end of the 1st round or the early second for fantasy owners. He's a PPR machine, and he could only get better, I believe, in the Sean McVay system. As long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy and could keep making those throws and make the plays, Puka Nacua, in my opinion, he's a top 10, 11 overall player coming into the season. Then I go Saquon Barkley. I think with Philadelphia, he'll have a solid season. I know Hurts might take some goal line touches from Saquon, but Saquon, this is the best offense and most weapons around him, where boxes aren't going to be loaded, and he's going to have some more room to run. Jalen Waddle, take him in the 3rd round. I think Waddle has a bounce-back season, even though last year he had 1,000 yards. The problem was the touchdowns were down for Jalen Waddle, and he seemed like every game there was a nagging injury or something where he would come in and out, but he played the whole season. Then 4th round, once again, Jalen Hurts is sitting there, and I just can't pass up elite quarterbacks in these 4th round where these guys got potential to be the number 1 quarterbacks in fantasy football. 3rd round, I think, is a little bit of a steep price, but to get a quarterback in the 4th round, especially in a format like this where it's a flex and not 3 receivers and a flex, you can't go wrong. Tank Dell in the 5th round. Tank Dell, even with Diggs over there now in Houston, I think they're going to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Him and C.J. Stroud have a great rapport, and he's perfect as your 3rd wide receiver. And in the 5th round, 6th round, James Conner, once again, I go with the running back position. He's going to be a workhorse running back. I know Trey Benson is over there for the Arizona Cardinals, but Conner, he just always seems to find a way and has those games. And in the 6th round, to get a workhorse back is good value. 7th round, Brian Robinson Jr. If you've been watching these videos, I've been big on Brian Robinson Jr. and Tajay Spears as big backup running backs that help fantasy owners and even be breakout backs. Then 8th round, Keenan Allen. I went Keenan Allen. He's been falling down these draft boards this season, I've noticed, especially over the last few weeks. I know he's come into camp 20 pounds heavier as Keenan Allen. Remember, it's a contract season for Keenan Allen as well. I just gave him up for a 4th-round pick. Was Keenan Allen, but to get him in the 8th round and for him to be my number 4 wide receiver, it's great value because last season Keenan Allen was 3rd in points at the wide receiver position per game. Then number 9, once again, Zach Charbonnet. I believe he's one of the best handcuff running backs in the NFL. And also Kenneth Walker and him could be in a 50-50 split. We could overpass Kenneth Walker as the season goes on. Number 10, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. I wasn't really targeting the tight end position after I fell back behind a little bit at the running back position, only taking 1 in the first 5 rounds. But for David Njoku to fall to the 10th round, we know he's got upside. We know he's one of the more athletic tight ends in all of pro football. Elite numbers at times. In the 11th round, his teammate Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb, we know, is a lottery ticket going into fantasy drafts. He's been a first rounder the last few seasons, but coming off a torn ACL and MCL, it's going to be tough to see Nick Chubb beat 100% this season, but still to get him in the 11th round with potential to be a top 12, 15 running back. I like the value for Chubb. Even if he's out, let's say 3 or 4 weeks, I think Nick Chubb could help fantasy owners in a big way. 12th round, Jacoby Myers. He's going to be a starting receiver over there in Vegas. The quarterback competition's Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. But Myers, he's a solid route runner, and he'll have those pop games, and he's my number 5 wide receiver anyway on the roster. And then to round it out, Jalen Polk, we'll see if he's going to have a role with New England. But in these late rounds, you like to take potential breakout candidates and young players, and that's what I did with Polk. And then to round it out, kicker and defense, Evan McPherson and the Jacksonville DST. So the final roster, Jalen Hurts, Puka Nacua, Jalen Waddle, Saquon Barkley, James Conner, David Njoku with a good value in that 10th round. Tank Dell, Evan McPherson, Jacksonville defense, and then the bench, Brian Robinson Jr., Keenan Allen, Zach Charbonnet, Nick Chubb, Jacoby Myers, and Jalen Polk. So there's solid players late in fantasy drafts where you got to build that depth off. And I usually want to go with 5 or 6 wide receivers or 5 or 6 running backs to get on my fantasy roster. And that's what I've been doing in all these mock drafts. You can never have enough backups because injuries happen every week in fantasy football, and it's next man up. And some of these players could be potential breakouts in the back end. We saw last season with Puka Nacua. He was going undrafted in fantasy leagues, the top 10 fantasy wide receiver last year. And now to the final draft, 12th pick overall. Saquon Barkley, I started this one off. Went double running back, Kyren Williams in the 2nd round. That's a great tandem. And then you're good at running back for many rounds until you want to hit the backups. Then 3rd round, Jalen Waddle, once again, Michael Pittman. These players have been hitting a lot in the back end of these fantasy drafts. And like I said, Jalen Waddle's got potential to be a good receiver once again. The first 2 seasons in his NFL career, he was a top 18 receiver in points per game. And then last season at 21 in PPR leagues. But I think Waddle, if he's healthier and another season under his belt, getting a nice contract, he's going to go out there and turn things around. 4th round, Michael Pittman. I think the numbers will still be up there, but they might take a hit a little bit with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, where he's going to run the football a whole lot. Then the 5th round, Kyler Murray's good value. I think Murray coming off the ACL and playing half a season last year, he'll be stronger, and he's got great weapons now. Marvin Harrison Jr. they took in the NFL draft, and obviously Trey McBride broke out last season. James Conner, Zay Jones in the offense as well. Then 6th round, T. Higgins. If Higgins could stay healthy and Burrow could stay healthy, Higgins has potential to be a top 15 wide receiver, I believe, this season in fantasy football. Then 7th round, Jalen Warren as a backup running back. I like him, 3rd running back on the roster behind Saquon and Kyren Williams. And even could be, obviously, a flex option is Warren if he really overtakes the job from Najee Harris as the season goes on. Then 8th round, Chris Godwin once again. To get Godwin, he's my number 4 wide receiver. I think is solid. He's still going to catch 85, 90 passes. He's going to line up in the slot more this season. And last year was just a down year, and him and Baker got to get back on the same page. 9th round, Brock Bowers, again at the tight end position. I really wasn't going to reach for a tight end in this draft. And to get a prospect, Brock Bowers, who's been one of the more talked about prospects in the last decade at the tight end position, I think it's good value to get Brock Bowers. Round, Tajay Spears, solid backup, I believe, for fantasy owners, and someone who could overtake the job with Tony Pollard. I believe Pollard's a little ahead of him in the rankings, but it wouldn't be surprising if Spears could overpass him this season. Round, Rico Dotto possibly could be the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott, we know he's up there in age. We know he's got a lot of miles. and wear and tear on his body. And I think Rico Dotto could pay dividends for fantasy owners, and to get him at a good price, 12th round, could possibly be the steal of this mock draft. Xavier Worthy, I was taking him a lot in the other mocks, anywhere from that 9th, 10th round range. But him to fall to the 12th round as good receiver depth and possibly could be the number one over there for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a slam dunk. 13th round, Gabe Davis. We'll see if he's got anything left. Is Gabe Davis got a nice contract in the offseason from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he disappears way too much. He'll have a pop game here and there. Maybe a change of scenery is what just Gabe Davis needed. And then to round out the draft, Kane, Fairbairn, and the Lions defense are the final roster with the 12th pick. Kyler Murray, receivers Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams, Brock Bowers, T. Higgins, Kaim Fairbairn, Detroit Lions, DST, Jalen Warren, Chris Godwin, Tajay Spears, Rico Dotto, Xavier Worthy, and Gabe Davis. So these are the type of rosters I would want to try to construct. A lot of wide receivers, a lot of running backs. Obviously, if you wait on the quarterback position, you'll draft a veteran and a young quarterback, like a Caleb Williams, let's say, and a Matt Stafford combo to see which one plays out. But if these quarterbacks, like I've been mentioning, and you're seeing in these mock drafts, in the 4th, 5th round of these top quarterbacks still in there, especially in these smaller format leagues, you go out there and I would take these quarterbacks. Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the quarterbacks I would take in the 4th. And then in the 5th, the only guys I really would take in that 5th round is Kyler Murray and Stroud. And if you can't get one of those guys, then you just obviously draft receivers and running backs in those rounds. So that's the mock breakdown. Hopefully it helps fantasy owners out there and people going into fantasy drafts to see which strategies they could use and see which players are available at those spots entering fantasy drafts in the upcoming 2024 season.